What happens when the boss you've never met walks in as a stranger? Join Darius Ellington as he steps into his Atlanta diner to uncover the truth and discovers a betrayal that could break his grandmother's legacy. Ready for a story that'll grip your soul? The Atlanta sun beat down on Auburn Avenue, its August heat shimmering off the asphalt outside a modest diner called Soul Haven. It was 2025, and the city pulsed with life. Honking horns, street vendors calling out, and the hum of a neighborhood that never slowed. Darius Ellington pulled his faded denim jacket tighter, the brim of his old Falcons cap shading his eyes. He stepped out of his beat-up sedan, parked a block away to avoid suspicion, and stared at the diner's sign. A warm, amber glow spelling out Soul Haven in cursive neon. His chest tightened. This place was his mother's dream, built from her recipes and her belief that food could heal a weary heart. But today it felt like a stranger. Darius hadn't walked through those glass doors as a customer in 2 years. As the owner, he was buried in spreadsheets, supplier calls, and late-night strategy sessions to keep the diner afloat. Soul Haven was a local legend, known for its smothered pork chops and peach cobbler that could make you forget your troubles. But lately, whispers had reached him. Online reviews complaining of cold service, rushed food, and a vibe that felt more like a chain than a home. His gut churned. Something was wrong, and he needed to see it for himself. He'd traded his usual tailored blazer for worn jeans and scuffed sneakers, his face half hidden under the cap. No one would recognize him. Not the staff he'd hired, not the regulars he'd once greeted by name. At 12:32 p.m., right in the lunch rush, he pushed open the door, the bell jingling faintly above. The smell hit him first. Smoky collards, fried okra, and the sweet tang of cornbread fresh from the oven. It was the scent of his childhood, of his mother, Lena, stirring pots in their cramped Decatur kitchen. Soul Haven was supposed to carry that love forward. But as Darius joined the line, his heart sank. The dining room was half full, yet the energy was flat. A couple at a corner booth stared at empty plates waiting for a server. An elderly man by the window tapped his fork, his iced tea untouched. At the counter, Kendall, a wiry 20-something, with a high fade and earbuds dangling, leaned against the register, scrolling his phone. Marina, her braids pulled into a loose bun, snapped her gum and tapped the order screen with a bored flick of her wrist. "Next," Marina called, not glancing. "Up." Darius stepped forward. "Can I get the smothered chicken with mac and cheese?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Marina nodded, her eyes still on the screen. "That it?" "Yeah, thanks." He slid a crumpled 20 across the counter, his fingers brushing the worn wood his mother had picked out years ago. Marina handed him change without a word, already turning to the next customer. Darius moved to the side, his cap low, and scanned the room. No smiles, no chatter, just the clink of dishes and a tired country song crackling through the speakers. Then he overheard Kendall, his voice low but sharp, talking to Marina. "Another one of these randos," he muttered, smirking. "Bet he don't tip. Ever since they started that outreach hiring, place feels like a soup kitchen." Marina snorted. "Yeah, and where's the big boss, Darius something, probably chillin' in Midtown counting his cash." Darius froze, his breath catching. They didn't know him, not his face, not his voice, and they were mocking the very mission he'd built this place on, giving second chances to those society overlooked, just like his mother had done for him. The sting of their words cut deeper than he'd expected. Was this what Soul Haven had become? What else would Darius uncover in the heart of his mother's legacy? And could he bear the truth? Darius Ellington stood frozen by the counter of Soul Haven, the Atlanta diner he'd poured his heart into, his Falcons cap pulled low to shield his face. The sting of Kendall and Marina's words still burned, mocking him as a distant, big boss. Sipping cocktails in Midtown, dismissing the outreach hires that were the diner's soul. Their laughter echoed over the clatter of plates and the faint twang of country music, each syllable a jab at the legacy his mother, Lena, had built. Darius's fingers tightened around his receipt, the crumpled paper a small anchor in the storm of his thoughts. He'd come to uncover the truth, but this truth cut deeper than he'd braced for. He slid into a worn vinyl booth near the back, blending into the lunch rush's chaos. The diner's walls, painted a soft ochre, were adorned with framed photos of Lena's original recipes and faded snapshots of community events, Soul Haven's early days feeding neighbors after a storm, hosting job fairs for ex-inmates. But today those memories felt like relics. A young mother at a nearby table hushed her fussy toddler, her plate untouched, while a server nowhere in sight. An older man in a fedora stared out the window, his coffee cold. The warmth Darius remembered, the kind that made strangers feel like family, was gone. Kendall's voice drifted over again, sharper now. "Man, this place ain't what it used to be," he said to Marina, leaning against the register. "Used to have class, you know. Now it's all these program folks dragging us down." Marina smirked, popping her gum. "Right? Like Darius? Probably don't even know who's on his payroll. Bet he's too busy playing CEO to care." Darius's jaw clenched, but he stayed still, his cap casting a shadow over his eyes. They didn't just disrespect him. They disrespected the very people Soul Haven was meant to uplift. People like his younger self, who'd clawed his way out of a rough start with a single chance. He glanced toward the kitchen, where a glimpse of Reggie the grill master caught his eye. Reggie, with his salt and pepper beard and steady hands, was flipping pork chops with the focus of an artist. Darius had hired him years ago through a re-entry program, back when Reggie was fresh out of prison and no one else would take a chance. Now Reggie was the heart of the kitchen, mentoring younger cooks like Shirais, who darted past with a tray of cornbread. Did they know the poison spreading out front? Darius's order arrived, dropped unceremoniously by a server he didn't recognize. A young woman with a distracted frown. The smothered chicken steamed, its aroma rich with Lena's signature spices, but his appetite had vanished. He pushed the plate aside and slipped out the side door. The bell's jingle lost in the din. Outside, the Atlanta heat pressed against him, but it was nothing compared to the weight in his chest. He walked down Auburn Avenue, past barbershops and street murals, and ducked into a corner bodega for a coffee he didn't need. The styrofoam cup warmed his hands as he circled back to the alley behind Soul Haven. The alley was narrow, littered with cigarette butts and an overflowing dumpster. A rusty steel door led to the kitchen, propped open for air. Darius leaned against the brick wall hidden by a stack of crates and listened. Through the cracked window above, voices spilled out. "Bet he don't even step foot in here," Kendall's voice sneered. "Ghost boss, that's what he is." Marina laughed, her gum snapping. "For real. Thinks he's all that 'cause he got his mama's name on the sign." Then Reggie's deep voice cut through, low and firm. "Y'all need to watch your mouths. Darius started this place with nothing but a stove and a dream. You think you'd have a job if he didn't believe in giving folks a shot?" Silence hung heavy, broken only by the sizzle of the grill. Kendall scoffed. "Man, if he cared, he'd show up. Why we gotta act like this place is some sacred temple?" Reggie's response was measured but sharp. "Some of us don't forget what it means to be given a chance. Keep talking like that, and you'll see why folks don't last here." Darius's breath caught. Reggie's words were a lifeline, a reminder that some still carried Lena's vision. But Kendall and Marina's carelessness was a blade, slicing through the diner's heart. He thought of his mother, her hands kneading dough, her voice insisting that a meal could mend a broken spirit. Had he let her dream slip away by staying in the shadows too long? The coffee in his hand had gone cold, but his resolve hadn't. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to the staff. "Team meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. mandatory, be there." No fluff, no explanation, just enough to shake them. As he walked back to his car, the neon sign of Soul Haven flickered in the afternoon haze. Darius paused, staring at the cursive letters that held his mother's name. He wasn't done digging, not yet. The truth was still unfolding, and he needed to know just how deep the rot went. What would Darius hear next, and would it break his faith in the diner he'd sworn to protect? The Atlanta dawn broke over Auburn Avenue, painting the sky in streaks of coral and gold. But Darius Ellington felt no warmth as he sat in his hotel room, the city's hum a faint pulse beyond the window. The words he'd overheard at Soul Haven, Kendall, and Marina's sneers about his absence, their scorn for the outreach hires, still rang in his ears, sharp as broken glass. Reggie's defense, a quiet stand for the diner's soul, had been a flicker of hope, but it wasn't enough to dull the ache. Darius stared at his phone, the group message to his staff. Team meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. Mandatory. Be there. Still glowing on the screen. He'd sent it in a moment of resolve, but now, as the clock ticked toward morning, doubt crept in. Could he face them without losing the fire that had built this place? He'd barely slept, his mind looping through memories of Soul Haven's better days. His mother, Lena, laughing as she served plates of smothered pork chops to strangers who'd become regulars, her voice insisting that every soul deserved a seat at her table. Darius had turned that vision into a diner, a beacon for Atlanta's overlooked ex-convicts, recovering addicts, kids aging out of foster care. But yesterday, he'd seen a different reality, a place where disrespect festered, where his mother's legacy was just a neon sign to some. He slipped on a charcoal blazer, swapped his Falcons cap for a clean button-down, and drove to the diner, his heart heavy but resolute. At 7:45 a.m., Soul Haven's parking lot was quiet, the amber neon sign dim against the morning light. Darius, parked a block away, watching as his staff trickled in. Reggie, the grill master with his salt and pepper beard, arrived first, unlocking the side door with a key Darius had entrusted years ago. His steady gait was a comfort, a reminder of loyalty. Sharice, the young cook with a quick smile, pulled up next, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Tiana, a server in her 30s, parked her minivan and hurried inside, her apron already tied. But Kendall and Marina were late. Kendall sauntering in at 7:58 with earbuds dangling, Marina trailing behind, her phone glowing in her hand. Darius's jaw tightened. Their carelessness was a mirror of the diner's decline. He waited until 8:02, then stepped out, his boots crunching on the gravel. The air smelled of asphalt and distant coffee, the city waking around him. He pushed open Soul Haven's glass door, the bell jingling softly, and felt every eye turn. Reggie's gaze met his, a subtle nod of recognition, but Kendall and Marina froze, their faces a mix of confusion and unease. The staff, 10 in all, cooks, servers, dishwashers, stood awkwardly near the booths, the dining room silent save for the hum of a coffee machine. Darius let the quiet stretch, his presence a weight they couldn't ignore. "I'm Darius Ellington," he said, his voice calm but firm, cutting through the tension. "Some of you know me, some of you don't." He scanned the room, his brown, eyes lingering on Kendall, then Marina. "Yesterday I walked in here as a customer, jeans, hoodie, cap low, ordered smothered chicken, stood right there." He pointed to the counter, the memory sharp. "And I heard things. Things about me, about this place, about the people we hire to give a second chance." Marina's eyes dropped to her sneakers. Kendall shifted, arms crossed. "I heard employees say I don't care, that I'm some ghost boss who's forgotten what Soul Haven means." The room was still, the kind of stillness that follows a truth too raw to dodge. Darius stepped forward, his blazer catching the morning light through the windows. "This diner isn't just a business. It's my mother's name, Lena Ellington's, heart. She built it to feed souls, to lift up folks the world turned its back on. Like me once, like some of you." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But what I saw yesterday, that wasn't her. That wasn't us." He glanced at Reggie, whose steady gaze anchored him, then back at the others. "I'm not here to point fingers, not yet. But I need to know who's still with this place, who believes in what it stands for." His voice hardened. "Because if you don't, you're not just letting me down. You're letting her down." The air felt electric, every face a mix of guilt, defiance, or quiet resolve. Darius knew this was only the beginning. He hadn't revealed everything he'd heard, not yet. The real test was coming. Would his words spark change? Or would the diner's soul slip further from his grasp? The air in Soul Haven's dining room was thick with tension, the morning light filtering through the windows casting long shadows across the worn oak tables. Darius Ellington stood before his staff, his charcoal blazer unbuttoned, his voice still echoing from the bombshell he'd dropped. He'd been among them yesterday undercover, hearing their careless words about him and the diner's mission. The staff, cooks, servers, dishwashers, stood frozen, their faces a mix of shock and shame. Kendall's arms were crossed, his high fade catching the light as he stared at the floor. Marina's braids swayed as she shifted, her eyes darting to the exit. Reggie, his salt and pepper beard framing a steady gaze, nodded subtly, as if urging Darius on. The silence was a living thing, pressing against every heart in the room. Darius took a breath, his brown eyes sweeping the group. Soul Haven isn't just a diner, he said, his voice low but unwavering. It's a promise my mother Lena made to this city, to feed people, to give chances, to build something real. But yesterday I heard some of you tear that promise apart. He pointed to the counter where he'd stood as a stranger. I heard talk about me being a ghost boss, about our outreach hires being a burden. That's not just disrespect. That's betrayal. Marina's shoulders slumped. Kendall's jaw tightened, but neither spoke. He stepped closer, his boots soft on the linoleum. I'm not blameless. I've been gone too long, buried in paperwork, thinking you'd carry the vision without me. That's on me. His voice softened, but his gaze didn't waver. But you, each of you, chose to wear this apron, to stand under my mother's name. When you mock the people we hire, the people we serve, you mock her. Charisse, her short curls bobbing, wiped a tear. Tiana, her ponytail swaying, gripped a chair, her face resolute. The weight of Lena's legacy hung heavy, a call to something greater. Darius paused, letting the truth settle. I'm not firing anyone today, he said, surprising even himself. But I'm done with half measures. Starting now, we rebuild. Monthly check-ins, customer feedback that matters, and me. Here, twice a week, not in some office. He looked at Reggie, whose quiet strength bolstered him. Some of you still hold this place's heart, I see that, but others? His eyes landed on Kendall and Marina. You've got a choice to make. He turned to the pair, his voice firm. Kendall, Marina, step into the back with me now. The room seemed to hold its breath as the two hesitated, then followed. Kendall's earbuds dangling, Marina's phone clutched tightly. Darius led them to a narrow hallway by the pantry, the door clicking shut behind them. The space was cramped, smelling of spices and cleaning fluid, but it felt like a confessional. Speak, Darius said, crossing his arms. Tell me what this place means to you, or if it means nothing at all. Kendall shifted, his eyes avoiding Darius's. It's just a job, man, he mumbled. I show up, do my thing, get paid. Marina nodded, her voice small. We didn't know you. We're here. It's not like we meant it personal. Darius leaned against the wall, his blazer creasing. Not personal, he repeated, his tone sharp. You called our outreach hires trash. You laughed about the man who built this place from a single stove. That's personal to me, to my mother, to every soul who walks through that door. Marina's eyes glistened, but she didn't speak. Kendall shrugged, a flicker of defiance in his stance. You weren't around, he said. We figured you didn't care. Darius's chest tightened, the truth in their words a bitter pill. Fair, he admitted. I let distance become neglect, but that doesn't justify poisoning this place's soul. He straightened, his voice softening but resolute. I'm giving you a chance, not because you deserve it, but because I believe in second chances. Show me you can change, starting today, or walk away. He opened the door, letting them decide whether to follow. Back in the dining room, the staff buzzed with nervous energy, whispers rippling like a current. Darius clapped his hands, breaking the spell. We open in an hour. Let's see if Lena's still in this room. As the team dispersed, he caught Reggie's eye, a silent thank you for holding the line. But the day was young, and the lunch rush loomed, a crucible that would test whether words could spark action. Could Darius's challenge ignite a spark, or would the diner's heart remain cold? The lunch rush hit Soul Haven like a tidal wave, the glass doors swinging open as Atlanta's Auburn Avenue poured its hungry heart into the diner. It was just past noon, the summer sun blazing outside. But inside, Darius Ellington stood by the coffee station, his charcoal blazer draped over a chair, his sleeves rolled up. The air buzzed with the clatter of plates, the sizzle of pork chops on the grill, and the chatter of customers, office workers, retirees, a young couple sharing a slice of peach cobbler. Yet Darius's eyes were fixed on his staff, watching, for signs of the change he'd demanded just hours ago. The neon sign above glowed amber, a quiet reminder of his mother Lena's legacy, but the question lingered. Could Soul Haven reclaim its soul? Reggie moved through the kitchen with the precision of a conductor, his salt and pepper beard dusted with flour as he plated collards with a steady hand. Charisse, her short curls tucked under a bandana, hustled beside him, her knife flashing as she chopped okra, her quick smile a spark of warmth. Tiana, her ponytail swinging, wove between tables, refilling sweet tea and cracking jokes that drew soft laughs from a family of 4. These were the threads of hope, the ones who still carried Lena's vision. But at the counter, the picture wasn't as bright. Marina, her braids pulled into a loose bun, stood at the register, her movements stiff but deliberate. She greeted customers with a forced smile, her thank you more practiced than felt, like someone trying on a new skin. Kendall, his high fade gleaming under the lights, took orders with clipped efficiency, his earbuds tucked away but his face a mask of indifference. Darius jotted notes on a small pad, his brown eyes sharp, catching every glance, every pause. He'd given them a chance to prove themselves, but chances were only as good as the effort behind them. The bell jingled, and a young man stepped in, his faded hoodie sagging, his sneakers worn thin. Isaiah, barely 20, scanned the room with nervous eyes, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets. Darius recognized him from the outreach program, a new hire at a local warehouse, recommended to Soul Haven for a meal and a chance to feel welcome. Isaiah approached the counter, his voice low. "Can I get the catfish plate greens instead of fries?" Marina nodded, tapping the screen. "That it?" she asked, her tone flat. Isaiah hesitated, then nodded, clutching his receipt like a lifeline. Darius watched, his heart sinking. Marina's glance flicked to Kendall, who turned away, arms crossed, as if the exchange was beneath him. The moment was small but telling, a missed chance to make Isaiah feel seen. Reggie, wiping his hands on a towel, caught the interaction from the kitchen pass-through. He stepped out, his apron streaked with grease, and gave Isaiah a nod. "First time here?" he asked, his voice warm. Isaiah's shoulders relaxed. "Yeah. Heard it was good." Reggie grinned. "You're in for a treat. Catfish is my specialty." He clapped Isaiah's shoulder, a small gesture that lit a spark in the young man's eyes. The rush rolled on, tables filling and emptying, the diners, pulse quickening. Tiana charmed a table of retirees, coaxing a rare smile from a gruff man in a trucker hat. Charisse delivered a tray of cornbread, her banter with a young couple easing their tense silence. But Kendall slipped to the back whenever the line slowed, his absence a quiet rebellion. Marina tried harder, her smiles less forced by the hour, but her hesitance lingered, a shadow of the carelessness Darius had overheard. When the line thinned, Darius approached the counter, his notepad tucked away. "Marina," he said, his voice low but firm. She stiffened, her braids swaying. "You saw Isaiah, didn't you?" She nodded, her eyes dropping. "He's from the program," Darius continued. "Came here looking for more than food. You gave him a receipt, but you didn't give him a reason to come back." Marina's lips parted, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "I didn't mean to. I know." Darius cut in, softer now. "But every person who walks in here carries a story. Treat them like they matter, or this place loses its heart." Marina nodded, her gaze lingering on the counter as if seeing it anew. Kendall reappeared, catching the tail end of the exchange, but said nothing, his expression unreadable. The shift wasn't over, and the diner hummed with possibility, a fragile balance between renewal and relapse. Darius returned to his post, the scent of fried okra and hope mingling in the air. The day had shown glimmers of change, but glimmers weren't enough to rebuild a legacy. Would the staff rise to the challenge, or would old habits tear Soulhaven apart? The Atlanta dusk settled over Auburn Avenue, painting Soulhaven's neon sign in a soft amber glow that flickered like a heartbeat. Inside, the diner was winding down, the lunch rush's chaos replaced by the gentle clink of dishes and the hum of a blues song on the speakers. Darius Ellington sat in a corner booth, his charcoal blazer folded beside him, his notepad filled with observations from the day. The staff had faced his challenge, prove they belonged or walk away, and the air held a fragile promise like the first green shoots after a long winter. But promises were only as strong as the choices behind them, and Darius was waiting to see who'd chosen Soulhaven's heart. He'd called a second meeting before the evening shift, not with the blunt urgency of the morning, but with a quiet resolve. The staff gathered near the counter, their aprons creased from a day's work. Reggie, his salt and pepper beard catching the light, leaned against a booth, his steady presence a cornerstone. Cherise, her short curls free from her bandana, stood, with Tiana, whose ponytail was loose but eyes bright. Kendall and Marina lingered at the edge, Kendall's high fade sharp, Marina's braids tucked behind her ears, their faces unreadable. Darius rose, holding two folders, his voice steady. "This morning I asked you to show me who you are. Now I'm asking you to choose." He held up the first folder. "This is for those who want to stay, who believe in what my mother, Lena, built. A place where second chances aren't just words." He raised the second. "This is for anyone who wants out. No judgment, 2 weeks' pay and a recommendation. But decide by tonight." The room stirred, a ripple of whispers. Darius set the folders on the counter, his brown eyes meeting each staff member's. "This isn't just a job, it's a home. Choose like it matters." The shift began, and Darius watched from his booth, the diner alive with a cautious energy. Tiana greeted a family with a warmth that felt like Lena's own, her laughter easing a toddler's fussiness. Cherise delivered a plate of smothered chicken, her banter with a regular sparking a grin. Reggie mentored a new cook, his hands guiding with patience. But Marina's movements were slower, her smiles strained, as if wrestling with something deeper. Kendall, though efficient, kept his distance, his eyes flickering to the folders. By mid-afternoon, Reggie slid a form across the counter, his signature bold. "I'm in," he said, his voice a vow. "This place gave me a life. I'm not letting it go." Cherise and Tiana followed, their forms a quiet testament. But Marina approached Darius at 4 p.m., her hands trembling. "I need to talk," she said, her voice barely audible. They stepped to a quiet corner, the blues song fading. "I don't think I fit here," she admitted, eyes down. "I tried today, but I'm chasing a paycheck, not a purpose." Darius nodded, his expression kind but firm. "Thank you for being honest, that takes guts." She signed the exit form, left her apron folded, and walked out. A weight lifted, but a chapter closed. Kendall was the last, approaching after closing, the diner empty, save for the hum of a floor buffer. He placed his form on the table, his high fade shadowed in the dim light. "I'm staying," he said, his voice steadier than before. "I messed up talking like I did. I want to make it right." Darius studied him, seeing a flicker of sincerity. "Then earn it," he said. "Not for me, for them." He nodded toward the empty tables, where customers' stories lingered. A week later, Soulhaven felt different, not louder, but truer. The bell jingled with a familiar warmth, the register hummed with rhythm, and the kitchen sang with purpose. Tiana's smiles were contagious, Cherise's peach cobbler drew raves, and Reggie's mentorship steadied the crew. Kendall, though, quieter, greeted customers with effort, his welcome growing genuine. Isaiah returned, his hoodie replaced by a crisp shirt, a job at the warehouse now secure. "Thanks, Reggie," he said, fist-bumping the grill master. "This place It's real. Darius, watching from behind the counter, felt Lena's presence. In every laugh, every plate. One evening, a regular, an elderly woman in a floral scarf, slipped Darius a note. Soul Haven feels like home again. Lena's proud, I know it. He read it twice, tucking it into his pocket like a treasure. Standing outside, the neon sign flickering, Darius whispered, "We're still here, Mama." Soul Haven wasn't perfect, but it was alive. Its soul rekindled by choices made and chances taken. For those moved by this tale, let's reflect on its truth. Small businesses like Soul Haven are the heartbeat of communities, often built on dreams of inclusion and second chances. In 2025, studies show 60% of U.S. diners prioritize local spots for their social impact, not just food. Darius's story reminds us that culture thrives on respect and presence, whether in a diner or a workplace. Want to dive deeper? Explore books like Start With Why or Local History on Atlanta's Black-owned businesses to see how purpose drives change. Did Darius's journey hit home? Smash that like button to spread the love. Subscribe and ring the bell for more stories of heart and hustle. Comment below. What would you do to save a place you love? Join our community of dreamers and doers. Let's keep the soul alive.